Okay, so far, if you've been paying attention, and of course you have, why wouldn't you? You've seen that we've talked about everything from email and video strategy to personal branding to talking with the CFO to, gosh, all sorts of maturity models. There's all sorts of great stuff that we've talked about. And if you don't see the bigger picture, you might wonder what the heck's going on. This seems pretty random. Well, congratulations. Today, we reveal a bit more of the bigger picture. What does it really take to get that seat at the table? What is the methodology? What is the framework? What is the way you look at the biggest challenge in work to make it happen? And the reason why we've been talking about these little things is because they all add up to this larger thing. So now that we've gotten pretty good at doing the little things, and we're going to do plenty more little things and plenty more big things, but today we reveal more of the blueprint. So stick around and check out how to get your seat at the table.
What does it really take for talent acquisition leaders to get their seat at the table? Turns out there are 6 core elements. Welcome to the People MBA. This episode on what it takes to get the respect you deserve is brought to you by Happy Dance Career Sites and Employer Brand Labs. Let's go check the voicemail.
All right, Brian, before we get started, why are you most excited about this episode?
Well, we got loads of ideas. We are the sponsors of this episode, so we can say what the hell we like, which is also good. However, but more to the point, the download is 155 scrappy ideas to activate your employer brand and drive TA campaigns, categorized in a really smart way. And there's some really good ideas in this download. There's 155 of them. And
statistically, there's got to be a couple of good ones.
Well, there's got to be something, but I think the biggest benefit is not all of them are going to be applicable to everybody, but it's amazing when you talk about these ideas in this download with your team, it will spark new ideas that are super relevant and appropriate for you. And it ranges from zero budget from a scrappiness perspective to maybe some budget or whatever. So there's something in this for everyone. Everyone needs to download this. I'll be honest, guys, James did the vast majority of this work. I contributed. And I'm reading through it going, Jesus, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. So I know for a fact people are going to get a lot of value out of this.
Very cool. All right. We'll see you on the other side.
You've reached the People MBA. We're out shopping for our new global headquarters, so go ahead and talk after the beep.
We know from our clients that one of their biggest challenges is ensuring their employer brand work is prioritized during times of change. Can you share your thoughts on how they stay top of mind?
All right, Brian, you are clearly shopping for global headquarters at yet another location. How is wherever the heck you are? How are things?
Good. Obviously, I can't reveal my exact location for security reasons.
I'm surprised we didn't have to disguise your voice, too. Let's just go all out.
I like to keep it interesting, stay on the move. Keeps me scrappy.
I want to point out that you're in a hotel room and you're in the town in which you live, but we don't have to say exactly where. You are clearly just moving from place to place to avoid someone, and I won't even guess who that someone might be. I won't even guess. Anyway.
I'm about an hour away from where I live, just to be clear. But
it's all London.
I've already said too much.
That's true. I'm already triangulating your position and sending the dogs. All right. Today we're going to talk about big picture stuff. And I'm well known for thinking in big picture and abstract terms. And what we wanted to do is really talk about the details these first 6, 7, 8 episodes to kind of give you a sense of, we're talking about very tangible things: how to write a better email, how to build a video strategy, how to see your future with a maturity model, all that good stuff. But today we're putting the pieces together enough so that we hope you really see the big picture, how this all works. Now, there's still lots of room on the puzzle to fill in, and there's lots of stuff for us to talk about. Don't worry, there's no shortage of stuff for us to talk about. But this is the point at which we said, let's reveal the puzzle. So, Brian, let's talk about, let's just lay out the mapping of the big, what do we have, 5 or 6 ideas of things you have to think about perpetually to really be able to claim that seat at the table, to really be seen, to get the respect you want, and to make the real change you want to make it work.
Yeah, so, there's a number of puzzle pieces, and some of them we have already discussed but potentially in isolation. So talking about how they fit together and, what are the larger components. And the first one, and this will come as no surprise, I always go back to, is the alignment with the business priorities and the direction of travel for the organization, plugging into what leaders already care about and demonstrating what you're doing and how it's going to turn into macro capability for the organization. That's always where I'm going to start. I think it's the North Star. And if you hang everything off that, then it's going to be easier to have relevance and context and explain what you're doing. If it rolls up to something that people are already familiar with, is already prioritized, maybe already has budget, and certainly has a leader that's staying up at night worrying about delivering what they're trying to do. If we can align with those things, we're going to get far.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend all your time thinking about how do you look, most TA leaders spend time thinking about things like how do I shorten my time to fill and how do I get better quality candidates, and that's all well and good, and I get why you're thinking about that. But if the business this quarter has says we got to open the Topeka office, and you're over here dealing with how do you shorten the time frame, guess what? You are not aligned to what the business is trying to do, and friction will happen, and you're going to kind of find yourself with the short end of the stick because suddenly you aren't prepared for these business shifts. And ultimately, once you have that seat at the table, you will be kind of seeing what's happening and you can prepare yourself. But if you can't pivot to that new business reality, you're in trouble. And they're going to start leaning on things like agencies and other outside sources, and they will not see you as valuable. And that's really where that happens.
Yeah, I also think it's an opportunity. So if you can see what's coming and anticipate what's going to be required from a talent perspective, you can start to be a little bit more vocal with, okay, if this is what the business requires, we need to consider this, we need to consider that. That's going to require this budget. It's going to need this timeline. We need to get started. Yeah. So all of the sort of wish list stuff that you ultimately need to build and manage for your area and function, if you're constantly giving it meaning, context, and attaching it to a tangible contribution to what the business is trying to do, then the budget conversations, the alignment, the buy-in, all of those will be much easier.
It's a horrible catch-22. The conversation is happening about the metaphorical Topeka situation, right? It's happening right now in a boardroom you're not invited to because you don't have the seat at the table. And if you aren't invited, and let's be fair, I know a lot of TA leaders who say they're the last people kind of informed about these massive sweeping business directional changes. If they're the last ones kind of told, they're always playing catch up. And when you're playing catch up, you can't do your best work. And if you're not doing your best work, you can't get the seat at the table. And that's where the catch-22 kind of situation kind of kicks into gear. So this is not a one kind of factor solve here. This is just one big element to keep in mind about how to show your value and how to get the seat at the table. The next one is kind of obvious, but let's just clearly state it for the record. A level of expertise and competency at everything you do. Most people we know don't quite get what recruiters and talent acquisitions do all day. You just have to look at LinkedIn to see all the myths about surrounding what recruiters do all day and how easy their job is and how they just kind of hang around and just wait for the ATS to fill. And obviously we know that's not true. You have to show what your job is. You have to show a level of competence. You have to show a level of willingness to be flexible. You got to be good at what you do. We've already talked about in previous episodes how that's not enough, but if you're not good at what you do, you're done. So you got to start by getting good at what you do. Brian, are you going to fight me on that one? Is that a sticking point for you?
So, I mean, for me, you're right. It is kind of obvious, and I think if people are in that situation and they recognize some elements of weakness, because let's face it, being a TA leader requires you to be a jack of all trades and an expert at all of them. Yes. And it's tough, Laid on top of that, I think there's a general perception that TA is easy from like when you look at it from other parts of the organization. So, some aspects to combat that is continually communicating what it takes and what all the moving parts are and the dependencies in order to do something with excellence. Because I think the internal education can't ever stop there, because people from a complacent sort of naive perspective will also always default back to, well, it's easy. All you do is put some jobs up and just fill roles when we need them, kind of thing. Some solutions from that come to mind, and this is from 20 years experience in the industry, and I'm sure this will resonate with you as well, James. It's a small global community of people who are particularly sort of generous and open to helping and supporting. So this is probably a little obvious reminder as well to lean on the community, ask some questions. And if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, kind of thing. There's a lot of value out there. This being one component, our conversation on what we're doing. But there's some phenomenally experienced TA leaders out there that have probably been there, done that, or they have strengths where you have weaknesses and vice versa. So there's a lot of opportunity there to collaborate and get stronger along the way. Obviously, it's got to start with recognizing these are our strengths. This is what our breeding ground or environment is optimized for. This is where we're not so strong. You've got to do that 360 analysis to understand what you are good at and perhaps what you need to improve on.
Yeah, I get that TA leaders are insanely busy. I'm going to go ahead and just bite the bullet and say we all are. Like everybody, there's nobody just hanging around doing nothing. Everybody's busy doing something. I think too often sadly too many TA leaders use that as an excuse to not level up, to not listen to podcasts, to not read books, to not go to conferences, to not whatever it is it takes to get better. I think there's an assumption that TA is a slow changing beast. And that was true for 40, 50, 60 years. Mm-hmm. It isn't true anymore. We're in a space now where you can't just be competent and excellent what you do, because tomorrow the game is going to be different. So you have to keep your eyes open. You have to always be learning, always be growing, and finding new ways to kind of challenge yourself. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself up a creek.
I think it's easier said than done, though. I mean, let's be real.
Yes, absolutely.
Because the day job of satisfying the pressures that are on your desk right now and the urgencies that need to be satisfied for tomorrow are an endless stream of headache. Let's be super clear there. So just finding the bandwidth to even think about next month when you've got stuff on fire that requires urgent attention is really tough. So it's probably sort of very small changes, a little bit of time management, maybe some delegation or giving some team members, some junior members, some opportunity to step up or contribute in a slightly different way. But it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not asking everybody to go to a conference every month. That's insane. Obviously, I can't ask that. 5-10 minutes reading a couple of newsletters, 2 newsletters a day. I promise you in a month, you'll see the world differently. I promise you. If you're looking at the right ones, you don't have to listen to 45-minute podcasts like ours. You don't have to watch long videos. You can also just in snippets, and newsletters right now feels like the snippetist way, I'm making up words, to digest and get new ideas and kind of see more of the lay of the land.
Yeah, well, no, I completely disagree. I think you should always listen to the podcast. But you know what, though? This is an interesting, potentially controversial point, though. Even if you could go to a conference every month, not every conference is worth it. And in fact, I would go as far to say as the level of quality from a conference perspective isn't where it used to be.
Yeah.
And, there's more opportunity, there's more technology, there's more complexity to get your head around. And I think there's scarcity of experts, domain experts, sharing this stuff in a public forum. And some conferences, not all, are perhaps a little bit guilty of just putting any old person on stage, especially if they're from a big brand, to share a story because it looks like.
Why would you look at me that like when you were saying stuff like that? Why would you call me out like that, sir? That seems unnecessary. No, we could do a whole episode on our challenges about conferences, because Lord knows we've attended more than our fair share.
Well, think about that from a time management perspective. And sometimes it's a lot of travel, a lot of time out, a lot of expense in hotel rooms and dinners and all of that stuff. And it's just not worth it. So choose those moments carefully. And then you're right, find 5 or 10 minutes every day. And, but again, I just want to call that out. It's easy. So totally. We've all been there.
Totally. All right, let's get to the next one, which is networking and influence. You're always building influence. You are doing it one way or another, right? You are always letting people know who you are, what you're about, what you care about, what your value is. You just got to be intentional. If you want to do a deep dive on that, you can check out our very, very first episode when we were wee lads about personal branding. But Brian, let's connect that idea to this larger sense of how to get a seat at the table. Okay, so we've covered networking and influence pretty deeply in that one episode. The next kind of big challenge or thing you should be thinking about as a tea leader is the sense of reporting and evidence. You've got to prove what you say. And kind of, this is a good segue from this idea of taking a victory lap and showing your value. This is how you show the value. Yes, people will see the value of having better people around them. Their talent pool, their candidate pool is more qualified. There's some bigger names or some other, interesting places that you're pulling them from. but you need to show the data, which means you need to think about your data, which means you need to think about what numbers you want to be reporting in 6, 12 months time to show that you really are. I've always played the game of having to chase data is tough. Being intentional about what you want to be sharing is so much more effective. Brian, what do you think about when you think about data-driven reporting? What are the things that either everybody gets wrong or are getting missed, or just is there a place where we can draw a really strong underline about what is the most important thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things for me. One, if you present data and it's not benchmarked against a previous performance or a competitor's performance or something to give it some tangible context, then it could be a great big waste of time. And then the second thing is data isn't enough. If you can't interpret what that data means in terms of insight, then again, nobody really cares. It might be enough to sort of save your job or sort of maintain a flat budget or justify your existence. But, if you add a therefore on the end of everything you're doing so far, and make
it's a great hack. That is a great hack. I love that.
Yeah. And just interpret what that means for the business. And usually when you achieve something, and there is an insight, there's a business opportunity that then can go along with it. And those 3 bullet points after the therefore could be the difference between increasing the budget, being introduced to a new monthly senior meeting, or whatever it is, but it will open doors.
Totally. And it's the same kind of model that I used to teach my team back way back when I had a team, that when you're revealing work, you don't just say, we want to do X. You start every presentation with 3 words: in order to. That sets you up to say, this is what we're trying to achieve. And everything beyond that is how you make that happen. I think that therefore is a great hack to force you to get out of your head to say, ooh, that's a good number. Therefore, this is how you are properly communicating to the people who need to hear it most.
Yeah. And I think if you get into that habit, all those benefits will follow. And I would go as far as to say, look, train your team to be doing that and bringing the therefores to you, and making
1,000%.
sure that make sure they understand what this is all for and what it's going to take to get more budget, or to be relevant and be seen, or get information just ahead of time, a little bit sooner. Like, think about workforce planning. I mean, there's an episode for you, but if you knew what was coming a little earlier, just think what difference that would mean. All of these are opportunities to demonstrate the value you can bring, the elevated value you could bring if things were slightly different. And these are the little differences that you might make once a quarter that gets you closer to the table.
Yeah, there's no magic wand, there's no magic bullet, there's no switch you flip to get you there. You are building this narrative arc over the course of 3, 6, 12, 24 months to really show not why you should be at the table, but why they would be crazy not to invite you every single time. It's one thing to muscle your way and throw a couple elbows to get in there, but what you really want is for them to say, wow, you know who we're missing at this table? Head of TA, person who's driving the talent bus. That is so critical. And that doesn't happen easily, but it is a million tiny little decisions and elements and things that have to stitch together to create the story of your inherent clear value to the business.
Absolutely. And if you can build a personal brand such that you're a domain expert, you want rooms that you're not in, where some people suggest, hey, what would James do here? We need to get James's advice here. What's his advice, or that type of thing. When that starts to happen, you're doing something right.
If you're enjoying this conversation, subscribe to the People MBA, either on YouTube or your podcast player. All downloads are available at peoplemba.com. These gents are here to raise the visibility and value of our entire industry. So if you got something out of it, tell a friend, or a stranger who might become a friend.
Okay, by my count, this is number 5 of 6. Being scrappy and working within your current budget. Now, this is your phrasing, and I have some thoughts, but I want you to kick this off because I think this is so critical to doing great work and to being seen doing great work.
I just think it's the reality of you've got to deliver the results you've got to deliver, and you've got to do it with the budget, resources, and team that you've got. So there's no sense moaning about it. It's about making a plan that's feasible based on, the assets and resources around you. And I'm a great believer, having, a long entrepreneurial career. In the absence of budget, you've got to replace that with brain power and sort of creativity and innovation and hard work and late nights and all that stuff, all of which can contribute to a phenomenal high-performance culture and an ability to push a team or just encourage your own personal growth and all of that good stuff. Yeah. But the fact is, the stone cold reality is you've still got to do your job on a daily basis with what's in front of you, the tools that you've got, the budget and resources. So you may as well just get used to that fact, and get on with doing the best with what you've got, So hopefully we can not just point out the obvious and make you feel bad about the resources around you. We can give you some ideas around that as well, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, TA leaders complaining about their lack of budget is like a garbage person complaining about the smell. This is kind of the job. You will never get all the money you really need. So rather than complain about it, look at the constraint and say, what can I really do with it? One of my favorite writers, Alex M.H. Smith, has a line that says, strategy replaces effort. And if you think of effort not so much as blood, sweat, and tears, but also resources and budget applied, it's 1,000% true. You can think yourself to success. You don't have to spend yourself to success. Is money easy? Yes. If you have it, use it. If you don't, you have another choice. It's really important because ultimately, I think one of the fundamental truths in business is that winners get rewards. And it doesn't matter how big the win is. If you have a small win, it turns into a bigger win. And when you get bigger wins, people start to fund you. And I tell the story, when I was at Groupon, we built the employer brand and all this activation for $500. Yes, I have the receipts. It was a full year's worth of work. It was a website and it was stickers and it was a whole thing. Got 100,000 page views, all this good stuff. I knew that if I showed what I could do for $500, the next conversation would be, what can you do with $10,000? It was actually 50, which was great, but that is how it works, because ultimately businesses are placing these resources as bets at a casino table, and they can place bets in places where it's possible it's going to lose money. So why would they do that? And they don't always know the future. They don't always know what's going to work. So very often they're looking for people who are kind of on a hot streak, who are showing, oh, wow, they were really scrappy. They came up with a really clever idea. Wow, that cost very little money. They did amazing stuff. They're a winner. They get more. That is just it's horrible, and it's Machiavellian in its nature, but it's so true.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the roulette table at a casino, and the great TA leaders I've worked with over the years, they are always pitching a multitude of internal stakeholders for little pockets of their budget with a justification. Like if you gave us X, we'll do A, B, and C and deliver Y. And the budget at the start of the year is your budget, which is great. But for me, you should always be at that roulette table, placing multiple bets, pitching internal stakeholders that have their own budget, saying, if you contributed this, we could do that. And the benefit of that is it strengthens relationships. It demonstrates a one-on-one understanding of what's required. Once you have a little win there, like if they give you, 10 grand to do a pilot or do a obscure TA campaign in a weird location for a new division that needs, cryogenic engineers in Somerset, which I've done actually, weirdly. I think there was 3 people. Anyway, but you successfully deliver that. You've now got a relationship. You've got a track record of delivering success, and there's a way of finding new little pockets of budget that can add up to something significant throughout the year. So all the great TA leaders I've worked with over the years are constantly pitching internal stakeholders and budget holders for little pockets of additional cash to get things done. But even in the absence of that, let's talk a little bit about creativity and innovation and how you can just leverage small amounts of budget and big amounts of goodwill and teams elsewhere and, calls to action and gratitude and, whatever it is, other aspects of currency inside organizations to achieve great results. I mean, you must have seen some amazing campaigns and feats of creativity overcome absence of budget over the years, James. I mean, if you've got any examples that spring to mind.
I mean, what you do is you look at what you have. And this is something I try to bang the drum about a lot. It's easy to lament what you don't have. It's so smarter to say, what do we actually have sitting around? If you're Amazon and you have no money, there's a million boxes, literally a million boxes going out every day, and they got to wrap that box with some kind of tape. Why isn't your message printed on it? They got to print something on it, so why not yours? If you have trucks driving around the city, I talked to a plumbing company, and they said, how do we compete when we're going to, the salary for this a couple years ago, apprentice pipe fitter, apprentice plumber was $20 an hour, but they could hold a sign by the side of the road with the state or the city that says slow stop for $25 an hour. I said, here's the deal. You've got this giant billboard driving around. You got 5 of them actually, just driving around all over the place. You don't have to just put we got your phone number, here's a big pipe kind of situation on the side of it. You can also say, it's a career, not a job. Call here. And frankly, if you have that kind of message and you find yourself sitting in traffic while somebody's holding that stop slow sign, right? You're speaking to the right audience. I was at Roku. Roku has a social channel, or has a content channel. Why can't we use unused ad inventory for that? There's so many different ways you can just look around and see what the opportunities are. And I'm just one guy thinking these things up. I guarantee if you look around at what you have, at what your business does, at what your business is already spending money on, there's a lot of ways to kind of slide up on. And I want to reiterate something you said where you talk about this idea of involving internal stakeholders to leverage their budget. That whole process is like a microcosm of everything we've just talked about. It requires being seen. It requires having strong perception. It requires showing results. It requires influencing them to change their mind just a little bit. It requires talking in their language, not yours. All of that stuff, being scrappy, it's all right there. And that feels like an amazing kind of practice or scrimmage area for doing the big work. If you get good there, it will show up everywhere. And the best part is you'll be building these allies all over the company who are going to scream your name about how great the work is that you're doing. And there it is.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that you picked up on a great point that I made and expanded on it as well, James. Thanks for that.
Well, might as well. So that's what they pay me for, actually.
What, you're getting paid? What? No one told
me.
Yeah,
well,
anyway.
You're spending on a travel budget. Where are you going tomorrow? Oh, my goodness.
So, talking about budget. So obviously money is the one budget, but we also talked about this idea of currency. There's gratitude, there's excitement, there is FOMO, there is generosity. Yep. I've seen business cases that needs like 25 grand to do a photo shoot and this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it. And then in the absence of that, I've seen a little backdrop, a guy with a camera, and a little box of cupcakes, stickers, a couple of T-shirts. Usually this is like there's a dusty shelf somewhere with a big box of crap that people have produced and didn't get rid of at the last event. Put it to work. Put it in the middle of the office and just ask people to get involved. It's amazing what people will do because they want the the new water bottle, or they want those 5 stickers or a T-shirt or something. Oh my God. And it costs pennies. Yeah. But if you're just visible doing something and then you dare to say, hey, would you mind? And if you do, I'll give you this. Or, you get people coming out of the woodwork. Excuse me, so-and-so just across my cubicle said that they were given a sticker for helping. Can I have one? So I love all of this kind of stuff where, especially if you are in an office where people congregate and all the rest of it, spontaneously doing stuff and just recruiting people in great spirits, and of course, like thanking them afterwards, celebrating afterwards, absolutely. Showing them the difference that they've made. You can very easily recruit an army of helpers who are so willing, and typically they're advocates, and they'll go back to their desk and say, hey, they're giving away cupcakes, like you should get down there and I've seen that happen so many times.
Yeah. If these are the kind of fun, crazy idea tactics, like buying a sheet cake with the employer brand just to kind of launch it out, because how expensive is a sheet cake? Come on, it's not that hard. Turns out, and we just skipped right past this earlier, we have an amazing download for you. It is 155 free or almost free tactics to help you show off your work, show off your value. It is free to download. It is right there. And the only way to download is to go to People MBA. And if you're subscribed, it's free. And if you're not subscribed, subscribing's free. So there you go. 155 ways to really kind of show off your work, to show off the value, just tactic on tactic on tactic, all from a real cheapskate kind of point of view. Like, how do we not spend any more money? And it's, even if you don't use any of them, I bet if you skim them and read them, they will spark all sorts of great ideas that are specific to your company to help you see, oh, wow, I could do X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. And I can partner with that person. I bet they would love to. And then the ball gets rolling. That's
Absolutely.
what we have this stuff for. We would talk about this stuff all day. Writing it down makes it easier to turn this stuff into action. So go ahead and download that over at peoplemba.com. All right.
What I love about that list, James, is the like you say, it might not be perfectly achievable, any of those ideas, but you put 10 of those ideas in front of your specific team and say, how could we leverage this? You probably sort of sprout off and come up with your own version and your own ideas, and they're all designed to be able to do that with very little budget. I mean, that's the beauty of that list. And there's 155 ideas. They're all categorized in really helpful ways as well. So,
look, we're good at this, but we don't have comprehensive knowledge of every company and every kind of tactic. It's really about how do we get your brain spinning and you having better conversation with your team, with your people you're trying to influence to say, what else can we be doing? And hopefully that really kind of moves that forward. All right, let's land on the last piece of the puzzle, the last big element, and that is you gotta have a vision of the future. If you're just getting better and building your muscles and elevating your results and doing all this stuff, that's good. But what you're trying to do is make change. And change just isn't just incremental. Sometimes it is a journey to something different. I'm thinking of going from transactional to relationship-driven recruiting. I'm thinking about going from job boards to pipeline-driven. I'm thinking about, there's so many different kind of changes you could be making. And those are almost small in compared to what I imagine you could think about. Imagine a world in which every hiring manager is posting every 3 days about their open recs on social media. And not just social media, to forums that you will never, ever, ever get access to. Imagine if every recruiter doesn't ever have to do an outreach and that everything is about inbound driven. What would they do? How would they make it happen? If you're just getting better for the sake of getting better, you'll get better. But if you really want to show that you are at that level, the seat at the table level, part of that is knowing you have a secret plan of where you want to take this and what it's going to look like. You don't have to share it. But honestly, I meet a lot of TA leaders. I know a lot of them who are just running as fast as they can, and they have no vision of where this ends. And some of them, they have a clear idea of where they're trying to go. And trust me, it's subtle, but my God, it is night and day.
Well, I mean, I would go as far to say is like the difference between a great TA leader and a competent TA leader is having the clarity of what great looks like and what the destination is. And by the way, when you get to that destination, there's another 3 or 4 levels above it. You know what I mean? So, but
that wheel never stops. It's just you're always running.
Absolutely. But if you've got an idea of what best practice looks like, and you've got one eye on what's happening in the industry, and you know how you're benchmarking currently, then I actually think it is an important thing to share internally, James, because if you can constantly demonstrate that you are thriving and delivering results in less than perfect conditions, and you're working towards a more strategic way of working versus tactically, that always gets the attention of leaders. Nobody likes to be thought of as operating tactically when there's a strategic, better way of doing things.
Exactly.
But kudos to you for still being able to put numbers on the board in less than perfect conditions. And by the way, if I had a bit more budget, or if we worked in this way, like I could be working more effectively. And I think that's an important narrative, a drum that should always be beaten, all the time. And this might be a little bit coloring outside the lines, but if you see another role in another organization and you want to if you've always got that plan of what best practice looks like and what the next destination should look like, where you're working towards, then you're going to be ready to have those conversations, not just inside your organization, but when a new opportunity presents itself as well. And in this turbulent marketplace, you should always be ready with that.
For those of your longtime watchers, maybe one day we'll release the blooper reel of Brian fighting with his TV. It is really something. It is it is an epic battle of man versus machine. It is Moby Dickian in its sense of, what does it take to survive? It's
Look at these
it's really
good-looking
epic.
guys, though. I mean, it's
One
not
of them.
easy.
One of them.
There's no. Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes.
But it's not easy. It's not easy doing my own AV. Where's my tech team, James?
I don't know. That is next quarter's budget. We got to talk about that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Look, reminder, the big download, 155 tactics and ideas to help you get better, just very tactical stuff, is available in the download. Just go to peoplemba.com. This whole episode has been sponsored by Brian and I, which means it's sponsored by Happy Dance and by Employer Brand Lab. So if you want a really cool career site, talk to Brian. If you want to get sharper on your employer brand, talk to me. There we go. That's as much sponsors we have this week. We will have other sponsors next week because this is just how we're doing. Here's the reveal. Sometimes we don't want to be beholden to anybody else. Sometimes we just want to say what we want to say, and this was one of those times. So there you go. So thanks so much for listening. I clearly I'm amusing Brian, and that's really half my job. I don't have to be smart. I just have to amuse him.
I've got to say, James, I can't think of a time when you haven't just said what you want to say. And actually, I haven't got that much restraint either. So
yeah. It's the
question mark over.
It's just a fig leaf. It's just to give us just enough plausible deniability.
Okay,
that's
good.
all it is. All right. So if you're listening this long, why? But thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening. Keep subscribing. Let somebody else know about this podcast, or this project, or this video, whatever the heck you want to call it. Help your network. Help your friends get their seat at the table, just as you're working really hard to do the same. So
and don't forget to ask the questions as well, though. We want questions in our voicemail. That can be found at peoplemba.com. Record your dulcet tones, and we will directly answer your questions. What have we missed? What do you love about our download with 155 ideas? What did you come up with on top of what we gave you? All of this is great conversation. We want to hear from you.
Absolutely. So thanks again, and we will see you next week for another edition of People MBA. Bye.
Oh, I get it now. The table is a metaphor. That's almost clever. Too clever for either of them to have made up on their own. Anyway, if this has inspired you or helped you see new ways of getting things done, tell a friend about the podcast or point them to peoplemba.com. Toodles.